Hi guys, today we're going to be starting our volume unit, and it's actually going to be fairly short. I think I cut out quite a bit from this unit just because we're doing remote learning and I'm not there to really explain things as in person. So I cut out quite a bit, but we're going to get started for today. Today our goal is to find the volumes of cylinders and prisms. So what we would start with is the definition of volume. Now volume is really, it says it's the measure of the amount of space that a figure encloses. So if you think like a water bottle, it would be the amount of water that I can fit inside of that bottle. It's the space inside of the figure, okay? When I label volume, remember volume is going to be units cubed. So all of my answers will be cubed. Volume of a prism, this is the first formula that we're going to work with. And volume of a prism, what they use for the formula is a capital B times H. Now, a lot of times I'll have students that'll just say, oh, B stands for base, but the capital B actually stands for the area of the base, okay? So when I look at this figure down here, I would call it a rectangular prism because the bases are rectangles, okay? So I can pick out these two pieces as my bases, this one here and this one here. The way that I pick out the bases on the prism is they're the two pieces that have to be parallel to each other, okay? So like when I talk about capital B here, it's not going to be one number. It's really going to be like the base times the height for this rectangle here in order to find capital B in that formula. Now, H represents the height of the prism. And one thing that I want to point out to you is that this number will not be on the base, okay? So when I look at this rectangular prism, the height of this prism is actually going to be like here, okay? Notice it's not on either of the red rectangles that I highlighted, and we'll practice with this in just a minute, okay? One other thing that you'll see on your formula sheet, volume of a cube. Now, if you think about a cube, all of the faces of the cube are squares, and we know that all of the sides of a square have to be equal or congruent. So they're going to use this formula that's just S cubed, where S is going to represent the side of the figure. Okay, we don't find the volume of a cube very often, but that one will be on your formula sheet. Last formula that we're going to write down for today is volume of a cylinder. And I can really use that idea that we talked about on the last slide where I said capital B times H. Now refreshing, capital B does not stand for base, it stands for area of the base. So what shape are the bases on my cylinder? Well, they're really these circles right here. So if I think like area of this figure for capital B, I would be using pi times the radius squared. That's how I would find the area of a circle. So capital B is pi r squared, and then the height of the figure would really be right here. Even though it was turned on its side, remember the height is a number that isn't anywhere on the base. Now, your formula sheet will actually give you volume of a cylinder just straight out, and it's pi r squared h, but I kind of wanted to explain where those pieces came from. Okay, r is the radius, h is the height of the cylinder. One other piece that you might see on your assignment is they're going to have figures that are called oblique figures. Okay, oops, I lost my pen. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so oblique just means that like the bases are not lined up directly on top of each other. So like this one, you can see like this base and this base are a little off center from each other. So when they show me like a measurement like this, that's technically not my height. That would be called the slant height. I would still need to calculate to find this height over here. So what I could fill in is, I know this side is 13. How would I find that height right there? We're going to use our Pythagorean theorem. H squared plus 5 squared, oops, that looks like divide, plus 5 squared is equal to 13 squared, and then we would go about solving. We're going to practice with some of these pieces, okay? So I think I have 5 example problems, and then you guys just get practice on your assignment. Okay, so here we go. Finding the volume of a prism, okay? So volume formula, remember, is capital B times H. Now, the B is not one number, it's the area of the base. So I look at this figure and I say, well, what shape are the bases? Remember, the base is not the bottom piece on the figure, it's whatever has a piece that is parallel to it, okay? So that meaning that these are the only two pieces on this prism that are parallel to each other. So the name of this prism is a triangular prism because the bases are triangles. Okay, so how do I find the area of a triangle? Well, I take the base times the height and I divide by 2. What am I going to use for the base of this triangle? Well, I can really use 12 for the base. What would I use as the height? Well, the height is going to be 10, and then I divide by 2. 12 times 10 gives me 120. 120 divided by 2 gives me 60. H is going to represent the height of the figure. Remember, I told you that this number right here is not on the base, okay? That means it's not on either of the bases, okay? So it's not going to be a number that's on either one of those triangles. Well, the only other option I have then is this 11. That is going to be the height of my figure, okay? To calculate my volume, all I do is I take 60 times 11, and I'm going to end up with 660 centimeters, and I want to label it centimeters cubed. Volume is always cubed, okay? Let's try another one. Okay, this next one, find the volume of the prism. So once again, I would ask you to name it. And this figure, the only two pieces that are parallel to each other would be this triangle here and this triangle here. So once again, I would say it is a triangular prism. The volume formula is that capital B times H. Capital B is area of the base. So how would I find the area of this triangle? Well, we go base times height divided by 2. The base of that triangle is 10. The height of that triangle is 12. And if I divide by 2, 10 times 12 is 120. 120 divided by 2 is 60. You're not always going to get 60 for the area of the base. Okay? Once again, H is representing the height of the prism. It's not a number that's located on either triangle. Okay? Well, that would mean the height of this prism has to be the 25. Okay? And then from here, to calculate my volume, I'm just going to take 60 times 25, and I'm going to end up with 1,500. And what would I label this? This would be centimeters cubed. Okay. This figure right here, what would I name it? Now, some students will look at this and say, I have no idea. When I look at it, I can see that this piece is parallel to this piece right here. What do I call a five-sided figure? A pentagon. So this is called a pentagonal prism, kind of a weird name, pentagonal prism. Okay, volume formula is the same, area of the base times the height. Now, some students will say, oh no, I don't want to find the area of that pentagon, but this one's kind of nice. Remember when we talked about finding the area of regular figures, we drew in this little triangle right here, and we found the area of that triangle. Now, the nice thing with this problem is all of the sides are regular, so I know that the base of that triangle is 5, and they already gave me the apothem, so they were nice. They gave me all the pieces I needed. To find the area of that figure, remember we go base times height divided by 2. That's going to be the area of this little triangle in here. Okay, base of the triangle is 5. The height was 3.4, and if I divide by 2, grab my calculator quick, and if I go 5 times 3.4 divided by 2, I got 8.5. Now remember, that's the area of just this little triangle in here. How many triangles would exist for this pentagon? Well, there should be 5. So if I take 8.5 times 5, I end up with 42.5. That is the area of one of the bases. From here, I need to find the height of that pentagonal prism. Remember, it's a number that cannot be on either base, so it's not on either pentagon. My height is going to be right here, which is the 8. So to calculate the volume, I'm going to take 42.5, multiply times 8, and that should give me my final answer, which I ended up with 340 millimeters cubed. There's my final answer. Okay, moving on to cylinders. Students typically like cylinders because there's not as many pieces to find. Okay, volume of a cylinder. So here's an example. Volume of a cylinder, we said we could use the area of the base. Bases are circles, so that's where we get the pi r squared times the height. Okay, so if I wanted to calculate here, what would I get for my pi r squared, or area of the base, if I want to think of that? Pi times the radius. The radius is going to be 4.6 squared. So if I go 4.6 squared times pi, I ended up with, let's go 2 decimal places, so 66.48. H is representing the height of that cylinder, and the height is just going to be that 12.4. And now to calculate the volume, I'm just going to multiply the two. If I kept, well, let's just do this. 66.48 times 12.4. I end up with approximately 824.3 2.35, and I'm going to label it meters cubed. I'm going to tell you to go 2 decimal places unless it tells you to round a different way. Okay, let's see here. The next one, find the volume of the cylinder. Now, this example here is very similar to the last one. Volume of the cylinder, we can use that pi r squared h. Okay, so area of the base is just going to be the pi r squared. Okay, so what am I going to use for the radius? Looks like they're giving me the diameter here is 5, so my radius is going to be 2.5. Okay, so if I go, gosh, goodness. Okay, pi times 2.5 squared, I ended up with 19.63. H is going to represent the height of this cylinder. Now, they're giving me 2 pieces of information. They give me this 12 here, and they give me this 13. Now, this 13 is kind of like a slant, so I'm not going to use the 13. This 12 right here is representing the height. Then to calculate the volume, I'm just going to take 19.63 times 12. I end up with approximately 235.56 inches cubed. All right, last problem for today. This one right here is going back to the prism. Okay, if I wanted to name this, I would name it a, what are the shape of the bases here? What are these figures? These are trapezoids. So this would be called a trapezoidal, really weird word, trapezoidal prism. Okay, volume of a prism, remember we go area of the base times the height. So area of the base, how do I find the volume of the area of a trapezoid? This is actually going to be on your formula sheet for you. Okay, area of a trapezoid, we go half times the height, and the height of this trapezoid is 4. And then we have to add the bases. So base 1 plus base 2. 10 plus 6, because this base right here would be 6. Remember, the bases on a trapezoid are parallel to each other, kind of like the bases of the prism are parallel to each other. Okay, so times 16. When I multiply here, I'm going to end up with 32 as the area of those trapezoids. Okay, H is going to represent the height of the prism. Once again, it's a number that can't be on the bases, so it's not on either trapezoid. That means the height here has to be 18. So to find the volume, I'm going to take 32 times 18, and I end up with 576 inches cubed. Okay, so for the assignment, one thing that I want to point out here is that it's 2 workbook pages. And it says you must show B for every problem. That means I want to see what you got for the area of your base for every problem. I don't just want an assignment with all the volumes listed, because I know that you just multiply for a lot of these, but I want to see that you actually calculated the base. That's very important. Okay, the assignment is going to be your 2 workbook pages. So workbook page 155 and 156. I would strongly encourage you to do 1 page each day. Don't spend a lot of time working on both pages the same day. You guys won't have very many tasks this week, so I would recommend that you do 155 on one day and do 156 on another day. I miss you guys. Hope you had fun learning volume today. Talk to you later. Bye.